Hi, my name is Anton Kotenko, and my talk is about Tron, the user interface for generative graphics, which is minimal, universal, detachable, and very flexible. First, about some history. Once upon a time, we built a first generator, and we realized that we need controls for it. So we found and discovered the det.gui interface, which was the Google Chrome experiment, and it satisfied our needs in some amount. It has controls for any types of values you usually need for generative graphics, like numbers, checkboxes are very important, controlling colors, entering text, and some buttons, and the main thing is grouping controls by some label, because it is easier for the user to understand what is changed when the controls are grouped. And so we started to use this det.gui interface for every our generator here and there, and those are examples of it. And we realized that this interface has its own pros and cons. The pros are it is easy to set up, it has the minimal set of controls, and you also can save sessions, the feature we never used, but still you may save sessions to JSON file or to store them in local storage, so all the values are restored when you reopen the interface. And also it can connect to JavaScript, and our generators at that time were written in JavaScript. It also has some cons. The most important one is that it's looking not so good. The buttons don't look like buttons. So we had, in our case, move some to front. It takes some space on your workspace. It is no more supported, and it is hard to control, to connect it with Elm, which is the language in which we write our actual generators. So this is the example of how we integrated it. We had to put some buttons on the front panel because they were not looking like buttons in the interface. Also, we needed progress bars and the notification area for errors and different notifications. As you may see, a lot of space is taken. And we asked ourselves, why don't we try another approach? And for example, every control can be a graphical unit, and they all may be distributed in one grid, in one style. And also, this grid doesn't have to cover all your workspace, but can be detached. So the whole part of the whole interface can be used from some phone, some notebook, or even television, or also any part can be detached. And the workspace is clean from any excessive controls. The workspace is clean from any excessive controls, and it is like the clean sheet, the tabula rasa. We also decided we did the same for our next generator, but in this case, the grid user interface covers the very important elements, as you may see. And so we thought, why don't we make it dockable to different sides of the screen, so that the important parts of the workspace are not covered with the controls. And since the idea of the interface is to be detachable, you also can detach the whole interface and control your important elements from any device, any remote device. Also, it needed some artistic touch, and Igor Alexeyev designed it as the basic controls for all the basic values, and now the most part of them is implemented. So there are controls for numbers, the toggles are checkboxes, coordinate values. For example, you may define the direction of the light with it, the color controls, and the most important is the nesting. Also, Igor made some sketches on what we could achieve with implementing this interface. And these are the examples for Elmsphere, the current generator. These are for Rendelor. As you may see, some controls are very custom. So, for example, you may choose the type of the head of the person, or you have the palette to choose how the color of his or her clothes. And since the part of interface is already implemented, we also decided try to integrate it into the waiver generator, possibly the next generator we have. Here you may see that not every product has its own icon. It will be changed very soon. But the flows of the interface are already implemented, so it can be dockable to any side of the screen. And here you may see how the controls are distributed in these cases. Also, it is detachable now already, and any part of the interface can be separate from the main workspace on any device, even your vacuum cleaner. So you may control the generated output from there. And now to the under the hood section, which is how we see this interface as the developers. It has its own builder API, and every function in this API is connected to the type of the value it controls. So, for example, XY is the coordinate and color is the color. And there is the nesting, and there is the choice, which represents the selection boxes. This is the actual code. You may see it in details. I won't explain them. I will explain them if you ask. While we were doing the next version of the generator, we also wanted to define the API, to use the API in the actual generator, but still have that GUI as the interface. So we needed to send the values from the API to JavaScript, and we just decided to use the JSON format for them. So every value update is sent as a package, and this package contains the path to the value changed it means that if the value is nested in some controls, like for example, the second control in the first row is the group of controls, and then you select the, you press the third button in this group, and it's also some nesting, and then you press or change some number value in the seventh control. This is the path to this control. Also, there is the type of control, like if it's a text or a number or XY or color, and the value is just encoded in string because JavaScript has no types. So we determine how to interpret this string by the type specified in the package. These are examples of all the values sent. These are actually sent when we use our API to connect it to the that.gui interface. These are the actual packages. How the detachable functionality works. We use WebSockets with unique client IDs for it. So when client opens the session, starts the session, we assign the unique identifier for this client, and we use this identifier by passing it in URL to define to which session the values belong. Also, since you can detach the parts of the interface, there is the path in the URL, and as the same way as with the packages, it defines the part of the interface which is detached. So yeah, it uses WebSockets under the hood, and WebSockets are connected in a unique way using the client ID. And these are also the actual packages which are sent from the detached parts of the interface. They also specify the path, the type, and the value. And also they contain the client ID. This is actually the only difference from sending them to some JavaScript front end. Also, the builder API and the specification of your interface can be converted to JSON format. And this JSON just represents all the nesting also in the same way as with the packages. But here you may see the tree of all the controls in the structure. And the same way, every control is defined by its type. The difference is that it also contains the setup for the controls. Like, for example, for numbers, it contains the maximum and minimum value and the current value. And for nesting, it's just the nested list of controls. We're not finishing with, we don't consider the Tron as the final user interface for our generators. So we also think about the past. And in the old times, our very first generator was using the node interface, which is named Noodle at the time. It also takes a lot of space, but with the approaches we used in Tron interface, it can be improved a lot. So we can group several controls in one node, for example, and also use these detachable functionality, so that the groups of nodes are used on different devices, and your workspace is not covered with these noodles. We plan to do it for Elmsfire and Randalore and everything. And I thank you for listening. This is the end. Thank you.